I'm Jared Jenish, a librarian at the Howe Library in Hanover, New Hampshire. Today we're going to do a great family or intergenerational project. We are going to make snack balls. Perfect thing to do when you're stuck at home, and one of the really fun things about them is that you can play with the recipes, you can change them around, you can mix them up, make them just the way you like them. They're also really easy. There's no knives needed to cut anything up. You don't need to turn on a stove to cook anything. You just mix them, make them, and chill them. They're a lot of fun. I hope you'll join in. Today we will be making nut-free snack balls because some people have allergies to peanuts. So we will be using alternatives to peanut butter in this recipe. Many of the ingredients used in snack balls can be found around the house. They're very common. These include crispy rice cereals, quick cook oats, chocolate chips. You may not have chia seeds around your house, but a small amount is a wonderful addition. They give you great energy when you eat them. If you don't have any chia seeds around the house, you could go to mom and dad and say, look, why don't we have chia seeds? They're so healthy, they're amazing. Vanilla extract gives it some nice flavor. We often use sweeteners such as honey or maple syrup if necessary. If you look at these ingredients, you'll notice that many of them are very dry. They're very kind of powdery and flaky and crispy and seedy. And if we want them to end up looking something like this, then we're going to need some kind of glue to bind them together. And in this case, the glue that we will be using is sunflower butter. Because very few people are allergic to sunflower seeds, sunflower butter is a safe way to go. If you know that you're not allergic to peanut butter and you've checked with your mom and dad, you could use peanut butter as well. These are the basic ingredients that we will be working with. So this is where you can gather all of your ingredients together, the ingredients that we'll be using. Today we'll be using about 1 cup of crisped rice cereal, about a half a cup of instant oatmeal. We'll be using some chia seeds. These are completely optional. You don't have to add them at all, but if you happen to have any around, I think we'll maybe add a tablespoon of those, but you could add more, less, or none at all. We'll be adding chocolate chips. I have a 1/4 cup here, measuring cup, but I'm going to add 2 of those so that we add a total of 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. You can add more, less, or none at all. Here we have vanilla extract. We'll be adding I'd say about a teaspoon of that. It gives it kind of a nice flavor. It lightens up the flavor a little bit and brightens it. We'll probably use a little bit of maple syrup to sweeten it. I'm thinking maybe another tablespoon worth. And over here, we have the sunflower seed butter, which will be the glue that holds it all together. And finally, if you can think of other things to add, give it a try. In this case, I have a little bit of sweetened coconut. I actually prefer unsweetened, but the store was out when I went shopping. So we have sweetened. Sweetened coconut can be a little bit clumpy, so with my very clean hands, I'm going to declumpify it a little bit so it mixes in easily. It's one of my favorite words, declumpify. And there we go. We're set. And now, the fun part, and very easy part, we simply pour them all into the bowl. Thus, there's my first 1/4 cup of chocolate chips, and here is my second 1/4 cup of chocolate chips. I think I said we were going to add a tablespoon of chia seeds. Thus, and we will add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Thus, and you can see the measurements don't have to be exact. No idea how much coconut to add, so I'm just going to add some. And then for the gooey part, we want to add the sunflower seed butter. And it's going to glop in a big mass. A big ooey gooey sticky mass. And we're going to scrape it out with a spoon. Try to get as much of it as we can. And then, because it's so sticky, we're going to have to use another spoon to scrape it out of the spoon. And that way we get most of it out. And now we're going to do something very important. Before we touch any of this, because we're going to have to touch it, we're going to wash our hands. So we're going to come over here. You're going to hear me. Here we go, washing my hands like this. And I've washed my hands. And I've dried my hands. And now I'm coming back over, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm gonna go wash my hands again. That's how important it is to have clean hands when we do something like this. Washing my hands again, shaking off the water, drying my hands again. And here we go with extremely clean hands. This bit is messy. It's kind of the most fun part, if you ask me. I'm going to start with a spoon, just so I can mix the sunflower seed butter into the rest of it before I get my hands in there. Otherwise, it'll just stick to my hands and nothing will get done. So I'm going to mix it a little bit like this. And if you don't like sticky things on your hand, you could probably try using just the spoon, but I don't think it would work very well. The only really good way to do it is this. And I know it's clean because I've washed my hands twice, and it's really hard to mix it in, if you see. Everything gets stuck to your hands. But you just keep on doing it. You try to get all the dry bits mixed in with the sticky bits. You kind of have to scrape it back into the bowl. Probably want to make sure you're not wearing really nice clothing when you do this. At least not unless you're planning on washing it right afterwards, because it would be pretty easy to get it everywhere. Keep on mixing. You want to go down to the bottom of the bowl where all the dry stuff is and get that dry stuff and mix it in with all the rest. Scrape it off your hands once in a while, get it back in there. This is my favorite part. And eventually you end up with something that's pretty well mixed together, and it looks like this. Scrape it off my hands again, get it all back in there. There. How great is that? Now, you might not think that that will actually stick into balls, because it looks like it's all just dry pieces. But if you pick up a clump, you put enough in your hands, and you squeeze it together. You got to squeeze it really hard. I'm going to get a little bit more. Squeeze it really hard. You end up with something like this. And then if you want to try to make it round, you can very gently roll it. If you roll it too hard, that happens, which is no fun. Then you got to squeeze it back together. Well, maybe it is fun. Anyways, then you squeeze it back together again. And you can try rolling it again, this time maybe a little bit more gently. And voila, there you have it, our first snack ball. I'm going to put it on this plate over here. They do have a tendency to kind of crumble apart, so the harder you squeeze them, the better later on. So I'm going to get my second one going here. You can also make them smaller if you like. We could take a little bit less, and we can make little ones. Just for fun, you could even make a really big one. Now that's a snack ball. But I don't think I'm going to do that actually, because it'd be really hard to eat. You'd take a bite, and then it would crumble, and it would fall all apart. So I'm going to go back to kind of the regular size ones here. Now, as I said, you can add a lot of different things to these things. You could use mini chocolate chips instead of regular chocolate chips. You can add coconut. You can add other kinds of nuts and seeds. If you had sunflower seeds, you could add those. You can only add nuts if you ask your mom and dad first to make sure you don't have any nut allergies. You can add honey instead of maple syrup. You can use less crisped rice cereal and more oats. You can switch the proportions of those. You can add raisins. A lot of people add raisins to these. A lot of people add dried cranberries to these. I think I'm getting more chocolate chips down here at the bottom. I think they sank. So there are a couple here that are going to be really, really tasty. And there we have it. Our plate of snack balls. You can double the recipe to make twice as many. Also, if you make them smaller than I made them, which might be a good idea, you'd have lots of more little bite-sized ones. And then, of course, the next thing we want to do, finally, is clean up because we don't want to leave a mess behind for anyone else. So for a final note, one thing that can be really fun to do is dip these things in chocolate. To do that, you'll want to take some chocolate chips in a bowl, and you'll want to melt them. And that's very easy to do. You take the bowl, you put it in the microwave for 30 seconds. Then you take a spoon, you stir it up, put it back in for another 30 seconds and do the same thing. If you do that twice, or maybe 3 times, you'll have completely melted chocolate chips. And then you get something like this. You take one of the snack balls, you dip it into the melted chocolate, you very carefully turn it upside down on the plate to cool off and for the chocolate to harden. And eventually you end up with something like these. They're really good dipped in chocolate. I highly recommend that you try it. And when you're done with everything, the balls, the chocolate dipping, the cleaning up, then you take your plate of snack balls and you put them in the refrigerator. And for an hour or two at least, and let them get cold and harden a little bit, and then you can enjoy them. And you can store them in the refrigerator for up to 2 weeks, or in the freezer for even longer, up to 2 months. And you'll have a snack on hand whenever you're hungry. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our project for today, that you've learned a lot about making snack balls, mixing them, blending them, designing them, and the sheer fun of mixing them up and getting snacks you can eat that quickly and that easily. So go forth and make snack balls. Thanks for joining us.